Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is Farmcraft 2024. Guess what? We have a bonus today. We're doing a whole food for thought session. We had so much to cover when we were talking about launching the world, and there were so many details, and we wanted to give the run through kind of tutorial, but also we're so grateful to have Kelly with us as a guest, and there's so much that she knows about. So you get a bonus video this time. I can't wait to dig into what she says. But first off, let's all introduce ourselves. My name is Claire LeBeau. I'm the Chief Advancement Officer for NASEF, the Network of Academic and Scholastic Esports Federations. And we leverage the blend of play and learning, giving students and kids around the world a place where they can have fun and play games they love, like Minecraft, and learn a lot at the same time. And who is better at playing a game like Minecraft than our own Eric Leitner?
Hello. So yeah, my name is Eric Leitner. I do go by River online, and I am the education content producer for Clever Like Studios. So when Claire talks about putting the play and the learning together, that is what we do at Clever Like Studios, and that's why we love this partnership for Farmcraft, because we get to do it and make it happen. The slogan around here, and I got to credit Brian for this over, my boss here at Clever Like is, we take the games that students are already playing, that they're already passionate about, and we sneak in the vegetables. That's and it's never truer than when we do it in Farmcraft. It's never truer.
That's so funny. Well, and speaking of partnership, Clever Like is a fantastic partner in developing the game and the educator materials that you all use. And we're fortunate to have the support and partnership of the U.S. State Department and also the American Spaces. And so we have kids from around the world joining Farmcraft at their American Spaces, where they're able to use the technology resources and the experience and the expertise of the adult facilitators there. And we're lucky to have this group with us today from the American Space in Mexico, EMARC Links. So go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hey, hello. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Sergio Rochin, and I'm the tutor of this amazing group of students. And Will Hendrick is going to introduce our esports and his classmates.
Yeah. So here in this American Space in Mexico, here in Mark Links, this is our esport team with all our esport gear that was provided by the American Spaces. We thank them very much. Here is Valeria, Nicola, Gaston, Aaron, and Hector, and of course myself, Hendrix.
Great. Good to meet you all. Now, where are you in Mexico?
We're in the Mexican state of Sonora, which is mostly northern Mexico. We're in the capital city of the state of Sonora, Hermosillo, which is right next to Baja California, south of Arizona. So that's where we are right now.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for joining us. We're glad to have you with us. And Kelly, I saw you had a little furry friend try to sneak on. If it's not Eric, it's got to be you. So that's perfect. You just fit right in.
Well, thanks. Penny is not here right now, so don't tempt her. She will sneak in.
It wouldn't be a live stream without a cat cameo, right?
Absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to join you today. My name is Kelly Garbach, and I am a national program leader, which is a long title for a really dorky scientist with the National Institute of Food and Agriculture. I've been passionate about agriculture my whole life because I grew up in a farming area of the middle of the United States in eastern Kansas and worked on farms and ranches in western Missouri. And as soon as I got a chance to go to science school for a million years, I did that and got a PhD and then did a postdoc, because being a scientist in agriculture lets me run around and act like a curious kid all day and ask, how does it work? Where does it come from? What happens if we put a robot in there with it? And that's my actual day job. So I feel incredibly lucky to do that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that National Institute of Food and Agriculture is part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And we provide leadership and funding for challenges related to agricultural sciences. And it's really everything from research to education to extension to providing that information to farmers and growers on the ground. And I think no matter what your passion or interest is, there's something within the National Institute of Food and Agriculture that can resonate with and support that.
That's so good to hear. Funny because I always tend to read the word education, and I think because of my job, I think of students like the ones that are joining us from Mexico. But excellent point. When you're a farmer, and especially as we'll see with all the tools that are now coming into play in agriculture, education is constant. And I guess that's true not only for farming, but just about everything in the world, right? We should all try to keep learning, keep improving. There are all these amazing tools and technologies coming out. How does it work?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a two-way street. I think we learn from researchers at universities. We learn from farmers and producers and ranchers who are doing the work on the ground. And hopefully we provide the tools and funding and scientific leadership that's useful to them as well.
That's great. So Eric, we have now revealed the world. We're playing in the actual Farmcraft world. Should I put it up just as a quick little teaser here?
Absolutely, yeah. And so one of the things we always try to shoot for, and we didn't really get to mention on the stream, but it worked. It happened on the stream. If they watch, when they watch the other stream and they see that, is that we always try to keep the gameplay somewhere between the 20-minute and 40-minute mark, assuming that a lot of students are going to use this for like a class period and have to get through the game in a class period. Maybe they don't have access to sit at the device all day and play, but they're doing so in their classrooms. And we admittedly took our time to explain things and stuff as we went through it. And we ended up coming in at about a time of 33 minutes. So that was while describing it, but also by knowing some of the tips and tricks. So I think we hit a pretty good sweet spot. Admittedly, my best time somewhere close to 20 minutes. I feel like that can be beaten. We're trying new strategies constantly. But the goal, as they saw, was, we have to spend our money to enrich all of the possibilities we have for growing crops, use that money effectively, grow our business, if you will, grow things in multiple locations so that we can grow all the crops to meet the nutritional needs of all of these communities. We're looking at the mini map right now and all of the areas for farming that we can purchase. And then we have to make crop decisions and things like that. We have to make decisions around applying fertilizers and water and things like that. And, it's interesting because, and we've talked about this sort of year after year, is we want to encourage certain sustainable practices. And it wasn't until, and this happens every year, we start researching how we want to put the world together that we're like, oh, like I didn't realize like that was more sustainable. Like, for example, as we talk about automation, that could be more sustainable because it's monitoring those levels more precisely. We're not wasting as much of things like water or fertilizer, or applying more than is needed. But then it's always a balance, right? Like, but that also costs more money, and I'm using electricity, and I need a good valid water source. And so it's like we constantly have to play with these numbers, but it's been so much fun to do so. I'm going to hop into my outdoor farm before
Oops.
Yeah, go.
Before you go there, I just wanted to ask you to show everyone, because they may not have seen the other stream yet. So let's just talk real quickly about the 3 different areas here. So you're going to start in a rural field.
Yep, these are our rural plots in our rural zone. Mm-hmm. Then we have our suburban ones, which consists of greenhouses. And then we have our urban, which are indoor growing facilities and vertical farms inside warehouses.
Awesome. Okay. So I know you're probably going to hop in. We can't stop Eric from playing. So if you want to go and play, and we'll check in on your progress a little bit later. But we have now launched challenge number 1. And that is largely around sustainable sourcing. So Eric, do you want to describe that challenge?
Yeah, so the challenge for this one, and I'm going to, again, like sort of paraphrase this because I don't have it written right in front of me, is we want you to get in the world. We want you to play in the world. We want you to see what the challenge is. We want you to pursue that challenge. But as you're doing so, we want you to consider all of the data that the game is giving back to you. We want you to consider all of that as you strategize. If students were really paying close attention during that live stream and we got to the end and we had our submittable score on the screen, one of the things they may have noticed in that submittable score, and we didn't talk about it there, so if they're watching this, they're getting a good hint, is that it's not just, while time is the biggest factor, this is like a speed run. How fast can we grow the things we need to feed our community? But there are other factors. We're affecting things like our climate score. So you get a climate score at the end. The higher or lower that number is matters, but you don't know what that climate score is until the end. So you have to pay really close attention to the things you're doing. So for example, when I go into this field, and I did some upgrades, which is great. And I start growing a crop. Let's grow a crop. We'll do some ring radish. Why not? Right. And my season has already begun, and I've got insects, and my farmers are planting, and all these things are happening really fast. But if I go over here and say, you know what, I'd like to bring my water level up, and I apply, or actually maybe my fertilizer level, my soil quality up at the top, you'll notice that cost me 10 coins, but it also reduced my climate score by 10. Things like the climate score are going to be, we're going to have students who really master this, and things like that are going to be the things that really break those ties. Not only did you do it, but did you do it while considering things like climate? Did you do it while maintaining a good climate score and keeping that in the positive instead of getting down to negative climate scores where you're having that really detrimental impact and things are clearly not so sustainable as we've seen from previous Farmcraft seasons?
Yeah. So Eric is describing what we're doing in the game world, which is awesome. Kelly, how does that parallel what happens in the real world with sustainability?
Yeah, thanks, Eric, for the introduction. As you were walking us through Farmcraft, I was thinking about how clever that is to challenge ourselves to think across the multiple dimensions of sustainability. And that's really where I think the challenge and the fun lies. So I have a question for our friends in eMark Links. What are the dimensions of sustainability that you think about? We're in this world of sustainable sourcing right now, and we're thinking about the challenge of sustainable sourcing. And I love that question because it really gets us to think about where does our food come from and what are the inputs that we need to get there? Who is benefiting? Which people are benefiting in the systems? Which parts of the environment are benefiting? Or which parts are failing to benefit? Who needs more attention in this system? The ecosystem, the people, the markets. So what are the dimensions of sustainability that you all think about when you're engaged in these worlds, both in 3D reality and in what we're going to call the digital twin of Farmcraft?
Okay, well, thank you. Guys, who would like to answer the question? Hendrix, Valeria? I mean, you just have to mention all the things that you consider in sustainability, who gets more benefited, like, well, who needs to be benefited and where are we having an impact in all the things that we do?
Well, I guess reducing waste would be key, and sustainability, as large runoffs of like fertilizer can extremely pollute the waters around them and flow into rivers into places like the Indus River in Pakistan and India, where many farmers waste a lot of their fertilizer and it goes downstream into the Indian Ocean, and that's one of the most polluted oceans in the world, which I think is a very big issue.
Absolutely. That's a great example.
Someone else? No. Remember what you cover, and I know that you have done it, about sustainability development goals. Remember the chart that we all see, right? You can use that information. I mean, you have had a lot of classes with Miss Claudia about it. So, someone? Aaron, Hector, Valeria? No? Okay, they are shy today.
That's all right.
Well, I
We
think
put
part of
them on
that's
the
on me. I
spot,
put
too.
everyone on the spot really early in the conversation. But I think that that's getting us off on the right track exactly, thinking about the economic, environmental, and social impacts of our agriculture system. And that's really what sustainable sourcing is grounded in. That's the foundation of the whole idea. And I thought the example that you were giving just now about how to apply fertilizer and water to reduce excess and avoid it excess flowing downstream to create those harmful algal blooms and all of that was a really good one. And one of the things that I am working on with Department of Agriculture, and specifically our team at NIFA, the National Institute of Food and Ag, is using new technologies to measure the inputs and outputs in our farming system. So for the example you were just giving, applying water and applying fertilizer, we have to ask ourselves the question all the time, how much is enough? How do we know that we've hit that exact right amount, like a Goldilocks scenario? It's not too little, it's not too much, but it's just right. And many of the researchers on our team and the researchers that we're working with at universities around our funding programs are using sensors to capture precise information of how much water is being applied, how much is being used by plants versus how much is running off of the fields. Same thing with nutrients and all kinds of fertilizers. One of the most exciting innovations that we've seen recently is a plant wearable sensor. They call it a tattoo sensor because it actually sticks right onto a plant leaf or a plant stem, just like we would put a stick-on tattoo onto our own skin. And the little micro sensors that are part of that plant wearable sensor transmit information wirelessly back to a node that then transmits those data to researchers. So it tells precisely in real time whether a plant is thirsty, is it too dry, whether or not it's waterlogged, does it have too much? Same thing with nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium are key nutrients that we use to fertilize. And to me, that's really exciting because we're taking this big idea that's sort of like a grand dream of sustainability and making it precise, data-driven, and in the moment.
And we had a chance there to look and see, as Eric was playing, exactly that. We could see where the optimal scores were. And so this is something, as always, that Clever Like has done a great job of incorporating what is actually happening in the real world into Farmcraft, so that as these students are playing, they have the opportunity to experience it. I'm going to give you a funny example, Kelly, of what you were just describing. I was speaking with a rancher, and he was saying they're starting to use similar technologies with the animals. And so they put something sort of like a Fitbit on the cows, and then they know if a cow isn't moving enough, okay, then there's something wrong with that cow. Let's go check it out. And I just was picturing if I put a Fitbit on my dog, what the result would be. Because we talked about cats earlier. Boy, that little girl, she is always running around. But the ability to monitor and to be acutely aware of exactly how something is growing or thriving or not thriving really helps pinpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. The wearable sensors for livestock are a great example. And one of the things that we have learned from our research and funding at National Institute of Food and Agriculture is the importance of shade for livestock production. So in really hot, dry climates, for example, if cows have access to shade during the hottest part of the day, it can be 9 degrees Celsius cooler under the shade. That's important not only for the comfort of livestock, but it also helps reduce body stress. They're not burning energy just trying to regulate their own body temperature. And when they have lower stress, they're actually able to build and maintain a healthy weight, which is important to farmers and ranchers for their own bottom line and productivity. What's really interesting about this is you get folks who start to study the multiple benefits of having trees in livestock areas, and they can benefit storing carbon, both in the trees themselves and also the roots below the soil. They can create habitat for biodiversity. Birds is a very popular one to study because they're so easy to see and they're also really fun to watch. And we also, in some areas, even have additional products that can be harvested from the trees, whether that's feed for livestock or wood or branches that can be used for infrastructure. It's pretty fun when we start thinking across those multiple dimensions of sustainability.
Oh, that's great. Mark, any questions from your team there?
Yes, we have a set of questions already prepared. Okay, Hector, how does the USDA support climate change, climate smart agriculture technologies and practice to create positive economic, environmental, and social impact and to reduce greenhouse emissions?
Great. So I understood how is National Institute of Food and Agriculture using smart technologies and practices to create positive economic, environmental, and social impacts and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Did I get that right? Okay,
Yes,
cool.
perfect.
Yeah, I think this is like the $1 million question, right? How do we get all of the benefits and then how do we measure them? I gave you the example of using sensors before, because that's an increasingly important part of how we measure the impacts that you were just describing across economic, environmental, and social dimensions. I love that you all are working with this Farmcraft approach. And I used the phrase digital twin before because that's increasingly popular in research science. We have farmers and ranchers who are out on the landscape doing new practices. You know, they're going to try drip irrigation instead of overhead sprinklers. They're measuring that in the real world, but oftentimes they're creating a computer simulation, very much like Farmcraft, or a digital twin, to model different scenarios of like, what happens if we put a lot more water? What happens if we put no water and we reduce the amount of water that's going onto the field? That helps to refine the hypothesis or the guesses of what's going to happen in the real world before the scientific application is actually put out there on the landscape. So I think what you all are doing is really important. Like each time you make a decision in this digital space, it's helping you to test your hypothesis or your prediction of what's going to happen and how that's going to perform across multiple dimensions of sustainability. So what you're doing is really creating and testing your predictions in a very safe digital space so that you have the best information possible when you go to put it out on the landscape. The one thing that I will say is as sensors get increasingly advanced in our farm and forestry systems, we can collect increasingly precise information, and then that allows us to develop more detailed and accurate models of what the ultimate outcomes or impacts are going to be. For example, things like greenhouse gases that start at the field scale, but then aggregate up over the regional, country, and continental scales.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think that we have another question. Question number 2, please. I think that if you speak, yes, there you go.
Well, how does the USDA help develop robotics and mechanization of labor, including tools for small or medium-sized farms and disabled farmers?
That's a great question, because the heart of that question is really about accessibility. How do we make sure that everyone from small to medium-sized farms, people with special considerations in terms of physical capacity and any type of capacity, really, physical, economic, mental, emotional, have access to the type of technology and resources that are needed to be successful in agriculture? I think that, really at the heart of that, what our agency works on is research, education, and extension. So the research component develops the technologies that are needed for that accessibility and success across all sectors. The extension component makes sure that everyone has access to those technologies. And the education, like we were talking about before, that's really a two-way street. We work closely with farmers and ranchers to understand what the needs are so that we can direct our leadership and funding to the challenges where those resources are most needed. And then we make sure that our university partners and the folks who are active with National Institute of Food and Agriculture funding programs are sharing the research and what they're learning back to the communities so that everyone does have access to it. I know the first part of your question focused on robotics, and it might be worth highlighting that we have a special partnership with the National Science Foundation that is specifically about developing robotics in agriculture, and that's part of our cyber physical systems program. And I think with your expertise in Farmcraft and all the work that you're doing in a digital space, you would all be very well positioned for cyber physical systems if that's something that's interesting to you in the future. I think I'll pause there. This is one that I could talk about a lot. We also have artificial intelligence institutes 2 of which are funded by National Institute of Food and Agriculture that focus on these questions and using augmented reality and artificial intelligence and some machine learning algorithms to specifically explore these in a digital space, develop them there, and then put them into practice in the real world.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm just going to jump in for a second. When you talk about the accessibility, I was able to tour a facility called Farmbox Foods, and they have vertical farms that are in shipping containers. And he showed me how the racks where the plants grow all can roll out, and they're all designed in single pole structures that can be lifted off. So anyone who's in a wheelchair could go in and easily move what's growing in the crops back and forth and up and down to be able to maintain it just the same as someone who is standing. And I just loved that this is something that as we're designing and developing these farms, some of these new formats that we're using increase the ability for more people to participate in agriculture than used to be able to as well.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And since we're among friends here, I feel totally comfortable sharing. I'm someone who has a disability, and it's not a physical disability, but it's on the spectrum of neurodiversity. And I love that our scientists and agencies are getting more comfortable with the phrasing around neurodiversity, because it has to do with the way that we perceive, we think about, and we shape the world around us. And I think it's great that we're making space for that type of diversity as well, like across all of our human experience, from our brains to our physical bodies to the type of systems that we're designing. And I mean, I completely agree, Claire, with what you're saying, like anything that makes a system more accessible so that people from all different backgrounds and all different experiences, and whether we identify, as I do, as like, oh, you know, neurodiverse, there's a space for us there, and there's a way that we can work successfully and really happily and healthily in that system.
Yeah, definitely. All right, I'm sorry, eMark team, I jumped in ahead of you. Did you have another question to ask?
No, it's fine. Don't worry. Everything is very interesting, and we have. I think that we have many questions, but we're going to go with the third question that we already had. Okay, so please, Aaron.
How does the USDA support the development of indoor and urban and other emerging
That was a little hard to hear. Did you hear that, Kelly? Maybe you could repeat.
Oh yeah, I think we're
there
getting
you
the
go.
microphone passed over. Okay, perfect.
There we go.
How does the USDA support the development of urban, indoor, and other emergency agricultural production systems?
Oh, great. So developing urban, indoor, and other emerging agricultural production systems is important, I think, all around the world. And one of the main ways that our National Institute of Food and Agriculture supports that is with competitive grant programs. So anyone who's part of a nonprofit research group, a school, a university, a college can apply for a grant from National Institute of Food and Agriculture. And we actually have grant programs in all of the areas that you just listed, from urban to indoor and emerging agricultural production systems, including small farms, small businesses, and marketing. The areas that I get to work in as a national program leader are precision agriculture and agricultural engineering, which is, in my opinion, one of the most fun areas to work, because we get to see the proposals with all of the newest technologies and basically like the toys that researchers want to deploy in farm systems. And it's really exciting to see these collaborations between robotics engineers, computer science engineers, farmers, and ranchers, because I think those collaborations are the things that are going to allow us to develop the most exciting and sustainable solutions for our farm systems.
I have a question for the students off of what you just said. Before you started playing Farmcraft, were you aware of how much technology can be connected to agriculture?
Hola. There you go.
Well, I was expecting some mechanized, some machinery in agriculture, of course, with modern technologies being integrated into agriculture to expand yields and lower the environmental impacts, of course. But I did not know that now the National Institute for Science and Development was trying to integrate AI now into agriculture. I had never seen that concept before being applied to agriculture. I'm very excited to seeing it being applied further into agricultural systems.
That's great. And I think you mentioned maybe someone can in the room can describe the area where you live and the climate and why some of what we're talking about is so important to you there in Hermosillo.
Nicola, Valeria, go ahead.
Well, here in Hermosillo, it's one of the hottest places in the world. So we don't have many rains, and it's very difficult to have farms and to farm crops here because the rain normally helps a lot to farming. So what we use like greenhouses to keep crops in a good conditions.
Yeah.
And just for you to know, Kelly, here in Hermosillo, our the weather is the climate is very hot. We're usually from 40 degrees to 45 degrees Celsius, and there was a time that we were above 50 degrees Celsius. It was impossible to be outside your house. You needed to wear like a lot of sunscreen, a cap, and everything that you can like for you to protect your skin.
Yeah. And of course, if that's how what we have to do as humans, then the poor plants out there exposed are really suffering. And so that's why a lot of what we've been talking about is so important where you are. I think we have time for one more question from the students, and then we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay, perfect. Question number 4, Gaston.
How does the USDA support efforts to grow viability of the local and regional food system from the perspective of producer and consumer, thereby expanding market opportunities within the system?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think it is really important to think about expanding market opportunities. And I mentioned before the competitive grants program, so anyone can apply for a grant, including farmers and ranchers and small business owners for any type of agricultural related business. And in addition to the competitive grants program, we also have tiered mentorship so that folks can partner with different institutions, whether it's a college, a university, a business incubator, to get support and have a more formalized way to share knowledge and understanding between their institutions. And what I've heard from especially small growers and small colleges and universities, including those that are dedicated to underserved communities or minority communities, that mentorship and information sharing is every bit as important as the technology development and the technology sharing. So I think when we put those two components together, it can really be a powerful and positive combination.
Yeah, and that is something that is reflected in Farmcraft, because as you're playing, you have the opportunity to go and interact with different scientists, and they will tell you things that you should consider based on where you are or what you're trying to go. I think mentorship is so valuable and something that sometimes we overlook, and that's why leaders like we have Sergio here in eMark Links, what you teach your students and how you help them think critically and understand what's going on in the world helps them as they grow and develop. And as we said at the beginning, we should always be learning forever, right? So even when you're at a point where you have a farm and you're growing, you have the opportunity to learn from others who've done it before, which is fantastic. Well, this has been so fun. It's great to get so much information from you, Kelly. We really appreciate it. I think you've opened my eyes and all of our eyes to even more I love how much effort is going into making the world a better place and feeding more people all at the same time. We've talked about how careful you have to be about the environment and dealing with the runoff from fertilizers and things and really protecting our environment. At the same time, we try to feed all these people because we have more people today on Earth than we ever have. And guess what? Tomorrow there will be even more. And that just keeps going and going and going. So thank you so much. We appreciate your
Also,
being
I learned
here.
there's a job where you just play with tech tools, and I'm going to have to look into that.
I think you already have that job, Eric.
I do, but I was more. I was more. I just want to play with the
Exactly.
So
toys.
much
That's
for
it.
having me. Muchísimas gracias, amigos. Ha sido un placer. Que estén muy bien.
Thank you very much, Kelly.
Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much, Claire, Eric, for this invitation. It's amazing to be here. And we hope to see you soon. Thank you very much. Guys, what can we say?
Oh, well,
Thank you for inviting.
thank you for inviting us again.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, everyone. All right. So we will continue with our Farmcraft season. And so make sure that you stay tuned to the Farmcraft webpage, which is nasef.org/farmcraft. It is not too late to sign up. You can still sign up and join. So if you're watching this and for some reason you're not part of the fun yet, please join. It is completely free to join. We will provide Minecraft if you don't have it, and there are prizes. So we're hoping, I don't know, I got to say I'm kind of rooting for eMark Links because you've been on a couple of our events now. I don't think I'm allowed to have any favorites, but best of luck to you as a team, and we will see what happens. So thank you all for being here.
Absolutely.